From author Brian K. Morris comes a tale of irreverent holiday horror, told with much inappropriate humor. Dr. Victor Frankenstein creates the spirit of giving himself. Ho, ho, ho! Santa-Stein, or the post-holiday Prometheus. Available at Amazon.com. Get your copy today.
Welcome to Clever Title Pending with your host, Brian K. Morris, independent publisher, freelance hybrid author, award-winning playwright, and former mortician's assistant. Don't send him title recommendations because Brian knows exactly what he's doing. So just sit down and look pretty as Brian K. Morris scrolls through your comments and plays with his mouse. Join him on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, for Evening Pandemonium and Moonlight Madness.
And welcome to the madness. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Clever Title Pending for December 22nd, 2020. We're almost through this year. Hurrah. The finish line is at hand. And to celebrate it, we are going to be talking about a mental disorder. Yes. Oh, boy, if we can pick the right subject for this time of year. Anyway, we thank you for being here. Whether you're watching us live or you're watching us on the reruns, we appreciate you greatly. Also, everyone at iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Spotify, welcome to the show. We hope you like what you hear. And if you're watching us on Facebook on the Rising Tide Publications Network, if you like any part of this video, please give the video a like. Please share it with your friends because you're going to get a lot of good information tonight. We've got a great panel that we're going to be talking about. Very important subject to all creatives. And also, please like the page if you would. Join the 2,200 plus subscribers to the Rising Tide Facebook page. And if you're watching us on YouTube, again, please give us a thumbs up if you enjoy it. Also, please subscribe to the channel and give that little bell a little tingle if you would, so you'll be notified of any future escapades that we have on the interwebs there. If just want to let you know, this episode is brought to you as always by plasmafiregraphics.com. If the look of your book matters to you, it's going to matter to your readers, so check out Plasma Fire Graphics. They did the videos at the start of this program. Ooh la la. Anyway, they do big four publisher work at independent author prices. So please check out Jeffrey Hayes and everything he does. And also, this show is powered by GeekInsider.com. Please check out their lineup of great shows, if you would, please. Also, they have a wonderful Facebook page with a lot of good stuff on it. And speaking of good stuff, we're going to be talking tonight about something that affects a lot of creative people, whether it's writers or illustrators, musicians. Every so often, some of us get this idea that we're going to get discovered at any moment, and not for how wonderful we are, but maybe that we've been faking it all this time, and somebody who really knows what they're doing is going to come along. It's called Imposter Syndrome. We visited this once on May 26th of this year, so please check out our playlist on YouTube. And you'll see the first part of this discussion. It's something we're going to revisit every now and then. But we've brought a wonderful panel tonight to discuss imposter syndrome, what it means to us, how we're coping with it. And we welcome your questions and your comments. We will discuss as many as possible. And please keep your conversation going in the chat. Not everything will get on the screen, but continue talking to each other. Make a friend if you would. But anyway, like I said, we've got a great panel here tonight, and here they are. Now I'm going to unmute everybody because I don't want to talk by myself for the next 2 hours, and I'm sure nobody else wants that either. So anyway, we're joined by three wonderful, wonderful people, and thank you all for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. And so everybody, we're going to start with Amy, and please tell us who you are, why you are so freaking awesome, and where people might be able to keep tabs on you. So we'll go around the room. We'll go Amy, John, then Karl. And so, Amy, here you go.
Well, I'm author Amy Hale, and I write paranormal romance, romantic suspense, romantic comedy, and I'm working on my first thriller. And why am I so awesome? Well, let's see. We're talking about imposter syndrome here, Brian.
You're trying to fight it. We're trying to fight it.
Yeah,
So you're awesome.
What to say here? Because I guess it's because I really have a passion for what I do, and I love storytelling in general, and I'm the short and sassy storyteller. So there you go.
There you go. Get that branding in there, girl. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And next in line is John C. Bruening. John, welcome to the show again.
Good to be here, Brian. So who am I? I'm the imposter. No, I am John Bruening. I am one half of a small press publishing venture called Flinch Books, based here in Ohio. I'm also the author of the Midnight Guardian series, which began in 2016 with a book called Hour of Darkness, followed in 2019 by An Annihilation Machine. Book number 3 will be coming out probably next fall of 2021. Why am I awesome? I didn't know I was. This is a spoiler for me. I wasn't aware that I was awesome. If I had to give you a reason why, probably just because I'm just happy. I've been a fan of this kind of writing for a long time. By some standard, I'm one of the gang now by virtue of having done it for a while. So I consider that awesome. But what else makes me awesome? I don't know. That's somebody else's definition, not mine.
Well, I was hoping you'd say it's because the pinnacle of your career was appearing on the November 1st edition of Clever Title Pending, or it could have been the demise of your career.
It was December 1st, and it was a
Right.
proud moment.
I got on the wrong page there. There we go.
Yes.
It was a test. Yeah, that's it. And someone who was here on our previous panel and is back again to lend us his wisdom is the one, the only Karl Witsman. Karl, welcome to the show.
Hello. I'm Karl Witsman. I'm a writer and a retired counselor, and that kind of has given me a unique way of looking at imposter syndrome. So I hope to talk about that a little bit tonight. That's kind of what makes me awesome. Also, I have been trying to help a lot of people out in this time of crisis, I guess you might call it, and been trying to support a lot of folks that are trying to do new things out there.
All right, excellent. And also, Karl has a book out, several books out actually, on Lulu.com, including The Mad Gasser Cheerleader of Calhoun County. So please check that up. There we go. Way to go, Karl.
There we go.
Get that book up there. And by the way, Karl is on Lulu.com. John and Amy are on Amazon.com. We definitely would advise you to please check out what they do, because they are awesome. They really are. I'm not just a friend. I'm a fan. So anyway, we're talking about imposter syndrome. And while we're gearing up for our audience to talk to us about what they know or what the questions they've got, we'll just throw this out there, and this is going to be pretty informal. When was the first time you were hit by imposter syndrome? Can you remember the first time you felt that feeling? Who wants to go first?
I guess I off the top of my head, I think it was after my first book was published, and I started hitting the higher numbers on the Amazon charts, and they kept going up, and it kept going up, and I think we got to number 32, and people were telling me congrats, and I just kept thinking, this is a total fluke. This is not real. This is not ever going to happen again. This is just, I got lucky, and I just I could not apply. It was like I was watching someone else's progress, and it just was not. It just didn't feel like it was mine. And it's kind of hard to take ownership of that for some reason.
I think it was, for me, it was the when the positive reviews started coming in for the first book, because it was really, I mean, it was, I used to call it, and I still do, my message in a bottle. It's just like, put these books out just to see what happens, see what might come back. And generally speaking, it's been very positive. And I keep wondering, you know, what are they not seeing? They must be missing something, because, you know, I know where all the flaws are because I've written the books, but it just, you know, I keep waiting for somebody to come along and just say, this guy really has no idea what he's doing. And, you know, the emperor has no clothes. And, you know, I'm 2 books and 5 years into this, and I'm still waiting for that. And, and I guess that's what the imposter syndrome is all about. It's just, you know, I keep wondering when do I get past that? And I don't know when that is. I don't know if it happens in another couple of years. Does it happen 10 years from now? Does it never happen? It's hard to say.
Very good. Karl, how about you?
Well, I suppose when I first started self-publishing, because some people had made some comments about the quality of the booklet that I had. And back in 1987, no, it was before that even, I think, the quality of the books that you could get produced yourself were not like you can get today. So, yeah, there was some question of that. But I had already kind of dealt with imposter syndrome from another angle, and that was being a rather young counselor when I started this out and thinking, what advice do I have to this person who might be older than me that I can give to them? And I figured that out. And having dealt with that, I was able to overcome it about being a writer and a creator. So I have some things at the end here I'd like to share, things that we can do to maybe help ourselves out of this rut.
Excellent. Well, and because I know you said something, I think it was a couple months ago, and we'll hold it for the end of the show too. And I think you know what I'm talking about. Something you said about people who get imposter syndrome that has actually made it easier on me.
Well, we can talk about that one particular thing now. I mean, you know, real imposters, you know, those people who pretend to be lawyers or doctors, you know, or airplane pilots like the one guy did. Those guys are con people, and they don't have any problem pretending to be those people, you know. But we, you know, who, like you say, we see our own mistakes and all. When we reach a particular level of success, begin to wonder, do I deserve that success? But to actually feel the imposter syndrome, you have to have had a bit of success. So that's kind of part of the definition, is you have had success. So, you know, that's nothing to sneeze at. You know, once you've reached that level, then you start to feel the imposter syndrome. And that proves you're not really an imposter, because real imposters don't feel imposter syndrome.
Karl, I'm curious, by virtue of your background in counseling, are you familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, I am by no means a professional. I have a general layman's understanding of what it is. It's a cognitive bias, basically, and and the idea is, if you're someone who is, I even wrote it down because I wanted to mention it. It's a clinically proven cognitive bias, and basically people with higher cognitive abilities tend to assume that everyone else knows more than they do, and conversely, people with lower cognitive abilities tend to assume that they have it all figured out and they're the smartest person in the room.
Yeah,
that's my understanding of Dunning-Kruger, and I think it's a very simplified version, but I think that's basically what it is. And I think it's part of what we're talking about here.
Oh, sure. Because, you know, even people like Einstein, you know, had moments when they thought, oh, you know, I'm going to say this particular theorem out here and it'll prove to be wrong. And then I'll be looking a fool, you know, and maybe the consequences of that are higher for certain people. And they're afraid, you know, here I've got this reputation of being a smart person. And if I say something stupid, everybody's going to jump on me. Whereas the stupid person thinks, oh, hey, I've got a pretty good comment to add here, and
Mm-hmm.
thinks it's gold because it's the smartest thing they've ever thought of.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, you fix that. You just always say something stupid, and then it doesn't matter what you say.
There you go.
Yeah.
I built a whole broadcasting career on that.
Well, it's a lack of insight. You're not knowing what you don't know. That's
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it was Will Rogers that said everyone is ignorant about something.
Right.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know, so we've all got spots we don't know about, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. That's everybody. That's life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you hear about like so-called geniuses who probably couldn't find their way back home if they walked down to the end of the block. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a really good quote here from Trevor Hawkins. This question is from Psychology Today, but would love to your all's take on it. What causes imposter syndrome? Personality traits largely drive and struggle with self-efficacy, perfectionism, and neuroticism. I'll own that last part about being neurotic. Wholeheartedly, I'll kiss it on the lips. But what the rest of you? What do you feel about that? Do you think it's a sense, maybe a sense of perfectionism that, like what you guys said earlier, that we see the guy behind the curtain, we see the mistakes because we took most of them out, and we're probably thinking, "What did I miss?"
Mm-hmm.
You should always hire an editor, kids. But then you have somebody to blame it on. But anyway, how do you feel about this statement from Psychology Today? Do you agree with it?
I think the part about perfectionism is spot on. I think if you're somebody who really takes pride in every word you put on the page, or if you're a musician, every note you play or whatever, when in those instances, those few instances where you do get it wrong, you're acutely aware of it, and you assume that everyone else is too. I often make the analogy of, if you're a painter, and I don't mean an artist painter, but like a house painter, and you're standing in a 10 by 12 room painting this room, and as you're doing it, you're only, your face is only maybe 18 inches away from the wall, so you see every single flaw in that wall, in the plaster, whatever, and maybe the errant brush stroke that didn't look quite right or wasn't as smooth as it should have been. 99.9% of the people who walk that room will never see that, but you put it up there, it's there, and you're very aware of it. 5 years after you've painted that room, you're still aware of that off brush stroke, and I think it's the same for people who write books or make music or whatever, make film or whatever they do. If you're somebody who takes pride in your work, and you have a sense of you want everything to be as close to perfect as you can, when when you make that mistake and it makes it past the editor and makes it to the published book, you're just waiting for somebody to catch that.
Well, and I think it's a point just dawned on me while listening to all of you talk, that I wonder if we're more prone to this sort of thing than other creatives, because all of us have published ourselves, and we have been published by others. But I wonder if the fact that we are all partly self-published, that makes us more prone to it, because we are so more invested in the process of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to hijack the conversation here, but I have some thoughts about that too. I think there's still, to this day, and it's slowly going away, but there's still a bit of a stigma attached to self-publishing or even small press publishing, and I think there's sort of there's a thinking among some people that well, they're really not quite up to par, and that's why they chose that option, because they can't run with the big boys. So this is why they self-publish. And maybe once upon a time that was the case, but I think more and more with each passing year, it's less so. It's often done by very competent writers and authors. They do it done by choice, because they can have more control over it. But I think there's still this perception in the market, like, well, okay, you must not be the real deal, because you're doing this yourself, and you couldn't get a publisher to sign you to a 2-book deal or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, have you?
Yeah. I've had a little bit of a thing with that. When I wrote up the Shape Up Your Memory book, available on Lulu.com. See, I've learned off Brian. Get those out there. When I did that, it's a small. I mean, I'll hold it up to the side here. It's a very thin book, okay? Because I learned through journalism, like you did, Brian, and you keep things terse. I've seen other people write other books that are much thicker. They cover the same thing I do, but they have a lot of fluff in there. But I had somebody. I'm not speaking to that exactly. I mean, technical books, but someone had said something about, well, why don't you send that into a publisher? And I was teaching a class at the time, and I sold those books for $10 a piece. And I told them, this is mostly for the knowledge that I'm giving you. I'm giving you the knowledge, and I'm selling you the book. It's not worth $10. This paper is not worth $10, but the knowledge inside it is worth more than $10. And I had somebody say, well, why don't you go to a regular publisher? And I said, well, do you want to pay $20 for that book? Because that's what you'd pay if I sent that same little book in and they printed it and they sent it back to me. You'd be paying $20 for that book. So is that important to you? And they're like, no. On second thought, no, it's not. And besides, I would get maybe $1 out of that 20, whereas I get 9 out of the 10. So I'm much more happy being a self-publisher. Thank you.
There you go. And also, if you do like to keep control over the finished product,
a little bit.
I have a friend that used to edit textbooks, and she would tell me about people that were putting errors into it after she edited it. So that sure doesn't help somebody's imposter syndrome, I'm sure.
Sure.
Teresa Dunn has a comment here. I think everyone goes through imposter syndrome sometime or another in their writing experience. Have you guys ever met anybody who now we were talking before the show, some of us here who have been involved in this enterprise have seen people who are fully unaware of their lack of capability, let's say gracefully. Have you met people who maybe have not had imposter syndrome?
Yeah, they're insufferable. They just I mean, for us, it's funny. I mean, truth be told, personally, I mean, while it's not something, while it's not an experience I enjoy, I would rather go through. Well, I'd rather be the guy who's sort of second guessing himself, because I think that's how you get better at what you do. You're kind of always checking yourself. You're always checking your, am I doing this right? Am I hitting the mark? Am I developing my characters properly? Is my plot solid? As opposed to, I'd rather be that guy, for as crippling as that can be sometimes. I'd rather be that guy than the guy or the person who's never checking in and just assumes, I'm at the top of my game and everyone loves this and everyone loves me, and I'm just, and here's yet another great book from me. I'd rather take the approach of just, I'm going to do my best here. But I'm always going to be checking in with myself. Am I doing this right? I'm not even sure what the original question was, but yeah, your question was, have I met people like that? Certainly. Absolutely. Yeah. Both in my day job as well as my, the writers that I've known. It's just people who just, they kind of lack insight. They just lack the ability to check themselves and just acknowledge the fact that they might not be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, well, I also hear sometimes people online call it like false modesty. How would you guys tell the difference between, between genuine false modesty and somebody expressing the imposter syndrome?
That would be difficult to tell.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's like the symptoms are the same.
Yeah.
Now I had a big problem with false modesty, oh no, it's not that great, but I've tried to overcome that as well, because you're putting yourself down because you think society wants you to behave in a certain way. And I've decided, no, I'm not doing that anymore. If I thought that was great, I'm going to tell you, yeah, I thought that part was great. But I don't want to be like John was saying. You know?
Yeah, we're supposed to be proud of our accomplishments.
Right.
But I think there's a difference between being proud of what you've done and bragging like a jerk. So,
Right.
Exactly, Amy. Yeah.
Nobody wants to be that jerk. Because it's like something I read about a year ago, where the writer was saying that when you promote yourself, don't be saying like, I'm better than Stephen King, or I'm better than your name here, because the first response you'll get is, no, you're not. So that'll bring you back to earth real fast.
I want to make one more point about Teresa's comment. Is it's not only in your writing. You might get the imposter syndrome in other parts of your life as well.
Yes.
So if you deal with it in one part, like I said, when I was counseling people who are older than me, I thought, what the heck am I giving them advice for? Once you overcome that, though, then it helps you overcome the imposter syndrome in other parts of your life because you recognize it. And that's half the battle.
Yeah. Now, I do know one very successful author. When I first started writing, I asked her, I said, boy, release day's coming up. I'm really nervous. How do you deal with it? And she said, I don't get nervous. And I said, well, what's your process? What's your thought process? And she goes, I just figure everything I write's great and it's going to sell. And I'm like, well, that's awesome. I wish I could be that confident, but, and she does do very well. And I don't know if it's just coincidence or if maybe she really feels that way. I don't know, but she's probably the only person I know that claims to not get nervous before release dates or gets nervous about her work. She's just totally gung ho, here's my stuff. And I don't know it's hard to believe that there's anybody that doesn't at least get a little bit nervous when they're putting themselves out there, but I'm sure they exist. So,
Yeah, I just find that, it's like I've done stage work. You're always nervous before you go out. Any sort of creative endeavor, like you said, Amy, it's like you're putting yourself out there. You're exposing your talent.
Yeah,
and putting it out for criticism. And how can you not be nervous? Of course, while you were saying that, I had this vision of the unknown author here saying, yes, I never get nervous, yes, I'm totally confident, and then the minute they sign off on it, their faces in their hands and they're blubbering like an infant. It's like, oh my god, they're going to find out any minute now. They're going to find out.
Well, I think that's where some of the self-deprecation comes from. It's like I better make fun of my work before somebody else does. Yeah. It's like a preemptive strike. It's like I better, if somebody's going to be critical about my work, I'd rather it be me, and I'd rather be the first one to do it. That way, no one else can. That way, it's like a preemptive strike. That way, I was ahead of the curve.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That happens to a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think it's tough when you're in a like if you're a mathematician and you're, 2 + 2 is always going to be 4. You're always going to, that's always going to be right. But when you're creative, what you're doing is very subjective. So what one person loves, someone else is going to hate. And I think, at least in my mind, I'm always going, are they going to, more people love this than hate this? Or because I can't, look at my work and go, okay, 2 + 2 is 4. Bang, I got it. I did it. It's great. It's very, very subjective. So I think I find myself playing over and over. Oh, could I have done this better? Maybe this should be this. That's why I have to set a goal to stop editing my books, because I will edit forever and never publish. I'm always seeing something else that, well, if I give myself a little more time, I might come up with a perfect phrase for that. And then before I know it, I don't have anything out there. So,
right. You'll be an author with 16 unpublished manuscripts in a drawer.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
We're just one more edit away from perfection, which, by the way, you can't get. Perfection is impossible.
Right.
Excellent. It's achievable. I learned that from somebody a few years ago. And I think John raised a good point, and it's something I've had to look out for myself. a lot of my humor in the past has been very depreciating. I make fun of my books, I make fun of my broadcasting, whatever I do, I kind of like poke a little hole in it, just so I don't appear to be that guy. That's so egotistical and everything. But the problem with that, I think, is that it's like the old line about you repeat a lie enough, it will become the truth.
Right.
And I've had myself for a long time. Yeah, exactly, Carl. Yeah, it buries itself in your head, and you're planting a seed there. And I found myself for a while, especially once, like Amy said, once you start getting a little bit of success, and it's like, but I know I'm not all that, because I told myself that. I have convinced myself that I am not an adequate writer, I'm not a great broadcaster, etc. And that's something that we need to keep in mind, that when we do that sort of humor, that we got to remind ourselves we're joking.
Well, I think you're also giving other people permission to do that. When you do it to yourself, you're kind of opening a door, whether you know it or not, or whether they know it or not. It's sort of like you're creating this landscape or this environment where some people might find they find it like it's okay, it's safe to go after this guy or go after this person because clearly they feel perfectly comfortable criticizing their own work. So why not jump on the bandwagon or just pile on? It just and I'm not saying everyone's prone to do that, but I think there are people who will see that as an opening to walk through.
Yeah. And I'm a firm believer that what you put out in the universe is what you get back. So you're constantly beating yourself up. And even if you don't mean it, you're putting that vibe out there. And I know people think that sounds wackadoodle, but I mean, I've seen it work. So I try to be as positive in my own head as I can, because I believe it makes a big difference.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Teresa Dunn has an opinion here on that. Says the only way to beat it is to ignore it and move on. Keep writing your best and never look back. Now, how do you guys cope with when those feelings start up? How do you deal with them? Does that, do you just like put your head down and remind yourself that you've made some accomplishments, or is there a process you have for exercising these feelings?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to go back and look at positive reviews of my work to remind myself that despite what I think, there are people out there that are enjoying what I'm doing. I look at the various accomplishments. If it's been an award or whatever, I look at it and I think, okay, I did that. So regardless of what I think right now, I have accomplished this, this, and this. I have a vision board on my wall, just right here, that I can see every time I'm working, and it has my goals on it. It has things I'm working towards, and it has letters and gifts and things from readers. I've got cards up here, things that people have sent me to tell me how much they appreciate what I've put out there for them to enjoy. So I make sure I have reminders around me all the time, because I have imposter syndrome pretty frequently, unfortunately. And so I have to constantly remind myself, okay, you know what? That book may not have hit a list, or maybe you didn't make a lot of money off it, but there's this many people that absolutely loved it. And that's the most important thing, is that readers are enjoying it.
And that's one of the suggestions that researchers have found, that you should create what they call a hype file that you look at when you're down or you're feeling the imposter syndrome, so that you can hype yourself back up. So you keep a list of successes, just like Amy said. You keep those mementos that remind you of those good times, and you look back at those and say, okay, yeah, I do know what I'm doing. I'm not an imposter.
I think there's also a piece in there about, and I think Teresa's question sort of touched on this a little bit, just the sheer volume. I mean, if you can keep producing and keep putting it out there and keep getting some degree of, if not rave reviews, at least positive response, if you can keep doing that over an extended period of time, I think there's something to be said for that. There's just sort of a cumulative effect. I mean, it's like I mean, as far as publishing fiction, I'm still pretty early on the curve. I'm only working on my third book, but I also have to remind myself that I've been a professional writer for 35 years. I started out as a journalist, and now I'm in marketing, and I've been pretty successful at that for many years, to the point where I've been able to, like, have a family and own a home and just have a life. And not everyone has that backstory, but that's often my go-to, just the idea that, wait a minute, you're only on your third book, but you're on your 35th year of doing this, making money as a writer. So you must be doing something right. Not everyone has that luxury. Not everyone's doing it for that long, but that's one of my go-tos, is just to remind myself, this isn't something you started doing on a lark 5 years ago. You've been at it for a while.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. And that, you've got 3 books out, and we've all got books out, but there's so many people who don't even get that first book out.
Right.
So you're light years ahead. I'm sorry, Amy, were you starting to say something?
No, I was just going to say, I hadn't really thought of it that way, but I'm the same way. I wrote for diet and health magazines before I started writing fiction. And I did that for 13 years. And while it's a different type of writing, it's still writing. There's still that experience in that. And I think every piece you write, you learn something.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least hopefully you do. And that allows you to improve. So that's a good way to look at it, is, what have you also done? Maybe it's not what you're doing right now, but what have you done in the past that has helped you learn to get where you're at right now? And what we're doing right now is going to help us learn to get wherever we'll be 5 years down the road.
Right.
Yeah, we just had a comment dump of thank you, StreamYard. But Trevor Hawkins had an interesting comment about a lack of opportunities in the creative field, how that could sometimes create a sense of imposter syndrome that we have, like, for instance, this panel, we have done stuff. We can point to a website. We can point to something tangible that says, yes, we have accomplished something that other people have not. But for someone for whom that opportunity doesn't come up, do you think that maybe that could create an imposter syndrome that almost preemptive, that, like, well, I'm not getting these opportunities because I'm not good enough, that they're not presenting themselves to me? And that might be something else that we should take a look at and get a checkup from the neck up about.
Well, the opportunity to create is always there, and you can always create something for yourself or your family, whatever. You may not be able to sell it at that time. Okay, save it. There may be a time in the future when you can sell it, if that's how you're measuring your success. But that does not mean that you should stop creating, because if it's in you to create art, books, poetry, whatever, do it, because that's, as Amy said, that's how you get better, and that's how you improve, and that's how you grow a back catalog of whatever it is. So when someone says, do you have a piece that, yes, I do. Hang on just a second. I've got it right here.
When you talk about opportunities, I mean, I think it's never been easier to put a book on the market than it is right now.
Right.
So if you're saying, gee, I can't find the opportunities to get published, maybe you're not really looking in the right place, because it's, I don't want to say it doesn't take a lot to get a book published. That's really not a fair statement, but the actual, the process of physically putting a book on the market is a lot easier than it was as little as 5 or 10 years ago.
Yes.
The question is, it's easy. It's hard to put a good book on the market, but I mean, it's not hard to put a product on the book market.
Right.
The question just becomes, how good or not good is it going to be once it gets there?
I think it's safe to say that all of us here, and probably many people that are listening or watching, we make our own opportunities.
Yeah.
We're not sitting around waiting on someone to find us or discover us. We're putting our stuff out there. We're networking. We're trying to talk to other people that we know are doing well to learn from them, and then we're just going after it, because what is the luck favors the prepared?
Unfortune favors the bold.
There you go. Yeah.
Yes,
So be
yes.
prepared, be ready. Because you never know when, like Karl was saying, if write it anyway. At some point, someone may, you know what, we're looking for a story for this. You may have the perfect story.
Yeah.
And it's already done. Just do it. And then and then go out there and figure out what you can do with it after you've written it or painted it or whatever.
Yeah, I was sitting talking to Brian at a show one time, and the guy sitting in the next booth, he wasn't doing any business, but he was sitting there drawing, and I was like, he's got a particular style. I like that particular style. And so when it came time to choose somebody to draw the cover of the Mad Gasser Cheerleader, I called Eric Hawkins and said, hey, would you do me a cover? Because I saw you drawing there. So even that act of, I was just watching him draw, doing that, because people don't know that you can write things. People don't know that you can draw things. People don't know you can perform or whatever until you do it, and they can see you doing it. And then you create an opportunity, as Amy said.
Yeah. And that's how I got my contract with Angdor Productions for Havenwood Falls. One of the person, the publisher approached me and said, hey, I know your work. I've seen you're out there. I know you're serious about your work. You're not somebody that just kind of, I'll write it or maybe I won't. I know your work ethic. I know that you take pride in what you do, and I'd love to have you as a part of our team. And that's because I put myself out there. And, I tried to be as professional as I could. Without that, she may not have approached me, but that opportunity came to me because I made other opportunities before that.
Amy, I think it goes back to what you were saying a minute ago about taking risks. I mean, you and putting yourself out there. It's stuff's not going to happen unless you take the risk, unless you just step outside your comfort zone and say, all right, I'm going to show this to the world. You can define the world however you want to, and I'm going to wait and see what happens. And I may get slapped in the face, but I don't know. But there's only one way to find out whether this is any good or not. It's just to do it and put it in front of people.
Yeah.
Good points. Good points.
Yeah, because if you're an artist and you never create a piece of art, I can see where you'd feel the imposter syndrome severely. Because at that point you are, you meet a lot of writers who say, I'd like to write a book someday. Well, why someday? Why not today? Why don't you?
So you do it. You're not.
Right. But it goes back to what I was saying about volume. It's if you wrote a book 5 years ago and didn't write another one, well, you got to keep doing it. You got to keep making it, and you got to keep doing it and putting it in front of people. And I think that is at least one way to combat the imposter syndrome. The idea that, okay, well, my last book came out 2 years ago. I'm working on one now. When I finish that one, I'm going to try and get another one out 2 years. And in the meantime, I'll be working on some short stories that might get published in some anthologies. You just have to keep moving. You have to keep moving forward. It's like a shark. If the shark stops moving forward, it dies. And it just, I believe that's a pretty proactive way to battle that syndrome, is just to keep making and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Very good advice. Very good advice. And now for a pause in the seriousness here, Cindy Kemp, our chief inquisitor, CKOEPP.com, sign up for our newsletter, says, what happens if you eat Christmas decorations? You get tinselitis.
I have to say, I recently connected with Cindy on Facebook, and ever since then, it's been a steady stream of those kinds of puns. And I just, they make me groan and laugh at the same time. So yes.
And she's braced for it. Ready, steady, go. So we're probably going to get more before the night is out, and we welcome that. Now, Teresa mentioned something about over-ego syndrome, which is kind of like, what we were discussing earlier with the others, and that would be about Carly. Now, Carly's, there you go, self-depreciating humor. It ain't brag if you can do it. So
she does not have imposter syndrome.
No,
she knows she's written good things, although she does let me edit them. So she's not over egotistical about it, but she does not question what she's written, which is cool. That's great.
That's very sexy. It really is. Now, Teresa Dunn has a comment here. Some people who are overly eager and good at writing make us who aren't good at it feel the imposter syndrome. I think one of the first things I heard when I started doing this full time was don't compare yourself to other writers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, by a lot of standards, I'm fairly prolific.
Mm-hmm.
But I know there are writers who can just make this stuff come out. The old joke used to be a man walks into a bookstore and says, "Is there a new Stephen King book?" And the guy behind the counter says, "Of course there is." So, and his stuff is, he's the kind of the pinnacle to which many of us are compared, but we can't. So, I think you just have to, if I may voice an opinion here, that you just have to be content, or not content, I should say, but confident in your own abilities. Mm-hmm. And there might be somebody down the road that can do it faster, but speed is not the issue. There, quality. Mm-hmm. It's like gunfighters. There's always going to be somebody faster. Mm-hmm. And the idea is, I think, like you said earlier, just keep doing it. And one day you're going to maybe become the person that other people try to aspire to.
Right.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes, Edgar Rice Burroughs, if you write one story, it may be bad. If you write 100, you have the odds in your favor. It just goes back to what I was saying a minute ago about just the volume of work. I mean, certainly you want quality, but you also want volume, because the more you're creating, it's the only way to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
One other thing about that is that, and this is another nugget for your arsenal, Brian, to keep in mind. When you just write for your family or your friends, okay, you're first starting out and you have nobody to compare to. And let's say, you're not connected to the internet or whatever. You may be the most brilliant writer they've ever seen. And you feel, oh, okay, I'm pretty good. And then you meet another writer and another writer. And maybe as you progress and grow in your career, you meet better and better writers. So the people you are comparing yourself to changes. Mm-hmm. So that you now are comparing yourself to somebody who has been at it a lot longer, who's got more books out. But that's because your circumstances have changed as your success goes up. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be hanging around with much more talented people than you first started out with. And so, that comparison gets worse, maybe instead of better. And as you try to reach higher and higher, those people are going to be higher and higher. And so you cannot have a defeatist attitude about that. You have to realize, okay, now if I want to run with the big dogs, I'm going to have to be a big dog.
Yeah, it's part of the process. I mean, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're not learning from anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Oh, amen. Yeah.
So I am happy to be with people that are much better than I am, because I know I'm going to learn something just by being with them. And I love to learn and grow. And if I'm not improving my craft, I feel like I'm letting myself down, let alone my readers. So, I'm happy to hang out, and like you said, it changes. The people I hung out with and tried to learn from when I first started in 2014 is way different than now, because I've already learned those lessons and now I'm moving up and I'm learning more lessons. And I think it just continues that way.
I wonder, Amy, if I could just interject with a question, because I feel the same way. Do you ever have this experience where you start hanging out with more and better writers, and do you ever have that moment where you think, why would this person want to talk to me? I mean, because I think that's what we're talking. That is the gist of this conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right there.
I always think I've got a few people that are like just a phone call away, and they're very successful, and I feel very blessed that they allow me to pick their brain and that they consider me part of their circle. But at the same time, I'm like, why? What? Where?
Yeah, it's almost it's suspicion almost. Yeah.
You have to make sure I don't self-sabotage in the process,
Right.
Because I do find myself being just a little skeptical, a little worried. Okay, what's happening here that I'm just not seeing right now?
Right.
No, but something I keep saying is that there's room for everyone at the table. You just have to, make the effort, make the work happen, and there's just grab a chair and come up with the rest of us. But I'm also always saying that, and I'll embarrass Amy for a moment here because that's what I like to do. But, what else is new, right? But Amy has come a long way just in the reasonably short time that we've been friends. But I tell people that I want to keep pace with her because we all leave people behind in our journeys, and sometimes it happens by accident, sometimes circumstances force us apart. But I want to make sure, because I love Amy, I love her family, and I want to make sure that I'm there at the table with her, that I am worthy to be in that company. And that's one of the things that helps me get over my my syndrome, because I know that I have progressed in a certain amount of time, and I know that I can improve, and I see the path. But I want to challenge myself continually so that I can, get new opportunities. So I can, I won't be getting Amy's answering machine when I call her when I've got a question, and I do have questions, and we do talk to each other about it. So, but I just want to make sure I have a place at the table. And the thing is, like, you guys are saying, the more you put out, the more you show you can do the work, the more work comes your way.
Mm-hmm.
Which I said, because like I'm going to be hopefully doing something with Flinch Books this year. I'm already announced that I'm going to be doing something with Bobby Nash, and I've got other people that are sending me work, and it's that law of attraction kind of thing. But you have to put the work out in the first place and get over this feeling of inadequacy.
Right.
Right. Go past your own. Basically, they talked in the 60s about losing your ego. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of it, that, just get over this potential, the sense of potential embarrassment, and just put the work out there. And just, like Nike says, just do it.
Right.
So,
yeah. Even if you don't feel adequate, write, draw, whatever, because you'll never be adequate if you don't do those things. You will just be a wannabe, and nobody wants to be a wannabe.
Right.
Unless you're a Spice Girl.
Yeah. You were talking about leaving people behind, too, while you're searching for your next question there. I'll just keep talking.
He's on to me.
I'm on to you. Brian. Yeah, because I'm sure Cindy has another question down there somewhere. But you talked about leaving people behind. A lot of people will self-select themselves to be left behind. Okay. They may only have one story in them. They may only have one piece of art that they will do, and then that's it for them. They're done. And that's fine if that's what they choose to do. And they may not challenge you to do your best. Mm-hmm. In fact, they may be negative and pulling you down.
Yeah.
And, and you will see a lot of that. And you have to leave those people behind, sadly.
Oh, yeah.
Even though they may be nice to you in some ways.
I have had to walk away from people like that.
Yep.
Not, we didn't part ways in a nasty manner, but I just had to realize that these people, my best interests were not what they were interested in at all. They wanted to kind of hang around for a little bit. And then when I started doing well, jealousy, there was a lot of things that started happening that just were setting off the negative vibes in me and making me start to doubt myself more than I already did. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I had to grow, and I could not do that with these people right beside me. So I had to just grow away from them. Mm-hmm. And I find myself that I naturally now gravitate towards people who are more positive and more encouraging, and rising tide. That's why I love being a part of this community, is because everyone is so encouraging.
Sure.
Exactly.
There's to your point, Amy. I think there are those who, someone new comes along and they feel threatened, and some sort of passive aggressive behavior starts to ensue. It's not overt, but it's happening. And if you watch closely, you can see it, you can feel it, and you get this vibe like, it's sort of like someone feels threatened by you because you demonstrate some degree of talent and proficiency, and you're sort of putting them off balance in terms of they've established themselves as this sort of this I don't know, gatekeeper or whatever, and behavior starts to ensue. That it's, if you watch closely, you can see it. And I don't want to focus on the negative, but there are people who will look for ways to cut you down if they feel threatened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and also some people don't accept change,
right,
or evolution very easily.
Yeah.
And I think it's safe to say that, among the four of us, we are not the same people in a lot of ways that we were when we started this journey.
True.
Right. I know I've changed. And I'll even go on a limb and say for the better. I'm a better business person. I know it's me, John. Consider the source. But no, it's I'm a better business person. I'm a better marketer. I like to think I'm a better writer now, because I look at some of my old stuff and I'm going, I can do that better now. So I think I have evolved in certain ways, but some people don't like that evolution, because then it forces them to look at themselves.
Yeah.
And they see that they have not changed, or they are not keeping pace with you. And it's something that Varian Grant of IndieVolt.com and I keep talking about, is crab fishing. That you get like one in the basket, you got to keep that lid on tight. But if you study the behavior of crabs, that if you get like a whole bunch of them, even just one, they'll try to climb out. They'll all try to climb out of that thing, whether they're by themselves or in a bunch. But if they're in a group, the other crabs will pull them back in. And they will even tear their limbs off and even kill them to prevent them from leaving. And some people just don't like that change as you grow up and potentially beyond them. And I think that's a certain amount of jealousy, a certain amount of resistance to change that makes people sometimes try to take us down. But again, we have to remind ourselves we have done stuff.
And some of that could be their own imposter syndrome acting up, because they start to rise maybe with you and go, oh, no, that doesn't feel good. I'm going to go back down. Thank you.
Right.
And they'd be just as happy if you did the same. But you cannot let that happen.
Yeah. And I think it's something that we don't maybe address enough, is that success can be scary.
Yes.
There's a lot of change, and then there's a lot of pressure sometimes. You're like, oh, I did this and it did well. Oh, no, now I have to come up with something at least that good, if not better. And we put pressure on ourselves. So it can be kind of terrifying at times, depending on what's happening.
And I think also to that point, Amy, it just part of that fear is also about what you have to give up to be successful. I mean, if you're gonna market yourself and self promote, you give up a measure of privacy that you might have enjoyed previously. But if you're going to put yourself out there all the time and talk about your work, talk about yourself, talk about it's all about I hate to use the phrase your brand, but the more public you make yourself and your work, you give up a little slice of privacy that you might have enjoyed a few years ago, and because you want people to know about you. But if you want people to know about you, guess what? People are going to know about you. And that's a little bit of your own privacy you give up a little bit. So I think there's also that fear as well.
And you can't still work if people don't know about what you do.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, if you have to, and like brand, we all have a brand, and we have to. I hate that it has to be so, I don't know, markety. I guess it'd be awesome. We could just write and put it out there and go, here it is. But you do have to constantly market yourself. And your brand has to be consistent so that people, when they see something, will go, oh, that's an Amy Hale or Brian Morris or whatever. They know it when they look at it. And I think I feel like you have to constantly talk about yourself.
Yes.
I get tired of me a lot. I don't know about anybody else. I get really tired of myself when I'm marketing. Right. It's like, oh, can I just stop now?
I know when I did this show 3 weeks ago with Brian, it was just Brian and me, and people were asking me about it, and I was sending them the link to the YouTube link, and And I was always warning him, okay, this is 2 hours, 2 hours and change. It's a hell of a lot of me. Okay, so just be ready for that. So it's.
Well, yeah, I mentioned it this morning. I did a show with Ted Davies Artistry on YouTube. Check that out. I'll send you all the link later because I'm not afraid to talk about myself. But no, every time I put a certain amount of myself out into the ether, I have the voice of John Cougar Mellencamp in my head. I saw an interview with him on MTV one time where it was an outtake, and he's like, how long are we going to be doing this? How long is this interview? Even, I'm on every show now. I'm sick of seeing me, and I'm on like 8, 9, 10 hours a week doing just broadcasting aside from, doing, sharing other people's links and sharing my own. And yeah, John, you made a very good point that, and I don't think it's unhealthy that there reaches a saturation point with yourself. I think that's the difference between spam and promotion.
Yeah, that's been a really hard. I'm sorry, Karl. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's been a really hard process for me, is learning how to be comfortable talking about me. I'm still working on it. I mean, I think I'm better at it than I was. And honestly, thanks to Brian, because this is the second time I've done this in a month, and I think it's enough for a while, but it just, I think it's an important piece of promoting your work, is being able and willing to talk about your work and yourself and talk about it in front of a couple people, a group of people. I have yet to talk to an entire auditorium full of people, but you've got to figure out how to do that. And it's a challenge for some people, myself included. Some people have no problem with it, but for me, it's a challenge. And I feel like I'm getting better at it. And I think it's part of the process of overcoming the syndrome. It's just, you've got to figure out how to be comfortable talking about yourself.
Yeah, well, something and Amy and Karl and I think we've talked about this, that I have this thing called me, but not me. That, there's a persona that I do put out, and I'm in that mode to a degree right now. That there is, me who is pretty much about 90% of the real Brian, except that it is the 10% comes out during Karl's green room. Usually after I've had a couple of adult beverages, and I'm less concerned with my reputation in that place than I would be, say, here. And that's kind of how I get, I have this dual personality with, with overlap, like a Venn diagram. But that's how I get through it, and that's a good segue to fake it till you make it. And sometimes you have to do that.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good point, Brian, because I use the Uncle Karl persona. I run a humor group, and someone said, "Well, you give advice. I'm going to call you my uncle." And I thought, Uncle Karl, okay, that's a persona I can take on. So Uncle Karl does a joke, or the Dark Pope. Thank you very much with the beard comment. But I will put out a new joke every day on that humor group. Original joke, not something somebody else has done, but I have to come up with something else. And that pressure is, sometimes it's not coming. But I know people depend on it. They wait for it. If they don't get it by 9:30, people are checking on me. So, okay, yeah, that's a bit of success there. Another thing that helps with self-promoting is not to promote yourself so much. This whole idea about rising tide and, oh, look, there's Warriors Trust cover behind me by Michaela Jade. Now, I just promoted someone else and helped somebody else. That helps you because they will maybe promote you a little bit and you promote them a little bit. I find it easy to talk about Michaela Jade's new book, of which I helped do the cover. But, I really feel much better talking about her and her work, or Donna's work. And so that really helps me to get over the imposter syndrome, because I'm not, oh, look how great Karl is. But then that person might help talk about me in some other way. So you do help each other with the rising tide.
Yeah, very good.
And I do think we all have maybe a a couple, two personas. We have our private self and then we have our public self. And I think that's important because, like I said, we don't. There we go. We don't.
I'm sorry, Amy.
Well done. Well done.
We don't get to. My Alexa's talking.
Alexa, sound the alarm. Red alert.
Alexa, shut up.
Don't ever go on stupid o'clock with Alexa in the room. Trust me.
Just randomly talking about music all of a sudden.
John Cougar Mellencamp.
Yeah. Alexa, speak Klingonese.
So anyway, so I think we do all have the public and the private persona, and I think that's important because with the public persona, nothing is. I mean, like Hale is a pen name. Because I have had issues with people that don't understand boundaries. So it's important that I keep some things to myself, and those things are me and my family, and things that that's not anybody else's business. Like you said, green room, you have that other 10%. I have another side of me that's not always, prim and proper and perfect. I try to be nice in public.
What?
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, I have a potty mouth here and there.
I have not heard. I'm joking.
Stick around after the show. Anyway.
Well, and I have something people found out about me on one of Brian's shows is I have a tiny bladder. So that's something.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't dare read the screen when the thing starts. Not anymore. So,
but yeah, you need a little bit of yourself for yourself. So I think it's important to have both those.
It's true. That's true. Very good. And BrianRodman.com says, what is the strongest weapon you all have in your arsenal in the fight against imposter syndrome?
That's
Okay.
a good question.
I can start it because I can give.
Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
First of all, as you know, I think my strongest weapon are you guys. Like you three in the room in this little studio here, my wife, the people that remind me when I start going into the syndrome. And Cookie will say, your first book was like the #2 hot book on the Amazon bestseller list in your category when you first released that Bloodshot book. Or you have you're bootlegged in China and Russia.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we talked about that this morning on TED Talk on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to his channel. But we talked about that where I got a certain amount of validity by the fact that I tuned into Pirate Bay one time. I'm not going to tell you what I was doing there, but I went to Pirate Bay, the famous file sharing site, and I found a copy of Skyman there. And of course, my first thought was like, those sons of, that they're ripping me off. And then almost like a nanosecond later, I'm like, hot damn, I've made it. I'm worth stealing from. This is
exactly.
Great. I was jumping all around the room, and of course, Cookie is like, "What is wrong with you?" Which is a question that comes up often. But I told her, and she's like, "Oh, that's awesome! It's great!" And she wasn't thinking lost revenue. It's the fact that I got recognized that I was worthy of theft. So it's basically other people remind me that I've done something. Yeah. And that I am a worthy person, or somebody just comes up to my table if I'm doing a personal appearance. Boy, do I have a good memory. That they say, "I really love your book. I really, when's the next one coming out?"
Yeah,
that makes my syndrome just vanish like morning dew. So
yeah. I think my support system is my most important arsenal because I can't tell you how many times I went to John and said, should I keep doing this? Maybe something wasn't going well or I was stressed. And he'll go, remember why you started? And he reminds me that he's my biggest fan. And then he tells me all the time, I believe in you. This is going to happen. This goal is going to happen. You just got to keep at it until it does. So yeah, my support system is my friends, my husband, my kid, even my kids, you know, they're like, Mom, you're doing great. You know, without them, I probably would have given up a long time ago.
I think the challenge, I agree with you, Amy, but the challenge in that is and I guess this goes right back to the imposter syndrome. I hear those words from my wife and my close friends, my family members, and my first response, my first response is, yeah, but you're supposed to say that. You're my wife.
Oh.
You know, you're my friend. I've known you for 15, 20, insert the number of years.
Yeah,
so
right.
of course you're going to say that, because you're not going to say you should stop doing this and start selling insurance. You're not going to, no one who knows you, loves you, cares about you is going to say that. So I'm always like, okay, what are they just saying that because, you know, it's written into the marriage contract, or do they really mean that? And, you know, because my wife, when I was writing my first book, you know, I like you said, I many times along the way, because it was a 7-year process, and I thought, I don't know if this is, I don't know if I'm getting anywhere. I don't know if this is a good idea. And she kept telling me, I have no doubt you can do this, to the point where I dedicated the book to, I said, you know, to my wife Mariah, who had no doubt. I mean, because it's just, but the downside is, like I said, it's just, I hope they're not just saying that, you know, because that's what the imposter says to the imposter says to himself. I hope they're not just saying that because
when I
they're supposed to.
first started writing and I wrote my first book, my husband was like, yeah, you know, I believe in you. It's great. He's not a big reader, but he loves audiobooks. So when my first book came out on audiobook and he listened to me, when he got done, he turned to me and he goes, you know, I expected it to be good. I did not expect it to be that awesome. And ever since then, when he's told me he likes something, the doubt's not there. I believe he went. He did go from, I believe you can do it. Yeah, you want to do it, go ahead and do it. To, holy crap, that's amazing. You have to do this.
Yeah.
So that has helped. But I get it, because, you know, it's kind of like when you go to your mom, look, I drew this picture. Yeah. It's all right.
Put it in the Louvre.
Yeah. Museum. But yeah, I also have made it clear to my family that I want to succeed. I want to do better, and I can't do better if they're kissing my butt all the time.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes.
And thankfully, I've got friends, and my daughter's great at this. She's great at going, Mom, I don't know, read that sentence again. Or there was one section in a book I'm working on right now in the thriller where I read her a scene and she goes, no offense, but that's kind of dumb. And I went, really?
Wow.
And I read, and I started justifying the scene, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then I thought about it and I thought, you know what? She's right. That's kind of dumb. And so I took it out and it's better. So yeah, you have to make sure that your support system is the right kind of support system, I guess.
Right.
Well, that's like my wife, you know, she, for my Volcana book, she her big criticism was like, is chapter 39 supposed to make sense?
Ouch.
Yeah. And I'm like, I thought it did, but you know, I agree with you, Amy. It's so vital to have, especially your family behind you, and I'm blessed in that, you know, Cookie, you know, especially since I told her about my main hashtag, bring Cookie home. You know, she has been 1,000. You know, she was a super supporter before, but you know, she's even become more invested in the process, and I knew she had faith in me because, you know, this is going to astonish some people, but the life of a freelance writer is not always one of consistent income, shall we say?
I've done it. I can vouch for that. I've done it. Yes.
Yeah. And as I went from a fairly cushy job in the water utility to kind of floundering in the ether, and there have been times when I would tell Cookie, you know, I could still get a job at, you know, big box store handing out carts or something, and her response has always been, shut up and get behind the keyboard again. That's how you're going to bring me home.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
how can you stop when you have that behind you?
You know, in fiction, it's a little easier because you can say, well, yes, that, like, you want to make a book about dragons and you want to make a glow in the dark dragon. Okay. And somebody says, dragons don't glow in the dark. You say mine do.
Exactly.
And how can they argue with that? They can't. Okay.
Yeah.
But I've written a couple nonfiction books, and where this fact is this fact or that fact, and I've had people question parts of it. So I learned that when I put it up on the World Wide Web for everybody to see in this special forum that's dedicated to that particular genre, and I said, if you find any mistakes in there, please write to me so I can include it in the next edition, and I will give you credit if you help me write the next edition of this book. And people have.
Yeah.
So I kind of turned that imposter syndrome into this fear of, oh my God, people are going to find my mistakes, to please find my mistakes, people, and help me do it again. And
really cool.
That really helped me through that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
And I love that point about the dragons, because that's something that has always bugged me. Like with Twilight. Okay, I know.
Just what I was thinking of.
Vampires don't sparkle. Okay, you know what? Vampires don't do anything because they don't exist. So you can make them do whatever you want.
Yeah, why not?
When people, you don't have to love it, but Stephanie Myers did a really good job of telling that story to the point that it put her where she's at. So you don't have to love that vampires sparkle, but enough people did.
Yeah.
You can't argue with that.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Very true. Now, Cindy Kep has a great question here. If imposter syndrome is fearing you don't deserve the recognition you get, is there a reverse of that, assuming you deserve recognition that you aren't getting?
All the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Part of that, ask and answer,
But then again, I will tease my poor wife, Donna. I'll say, what I'd really like is for you to get up early and make me breakfast before I go to work, Not that I work now, but that's not going to happen. And the Nobel people aren't going to come by and give me an award, because that's not going to happen. And the Pulitzer people aren't going to come by and give me an award that I might think I deserve. That's not going to happen. And okay, I'm okay with that. But sometimes you think, okay, now there is something that I deserve, some recognition, but I'm not getting it. You've got to either look at, why do I think I need that? Because maybe I don't need that. Or, why am I not getting it? Maybe I'm not doing enough promoting to get that done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very good.
And I think if you probably want to be pretty careful about expressing that dissatisfaction that you're not getting recognition you deserve, because to be public about that is pretty unattractive, I think.
Yeah.
Even if you believe it to be true, and even if there's some merit to that thinking, even if you have in fact maybe haven't quite gotten some recognition you deserve, you'd be wise to just sort of curtail that kind of talking about that in public, because it's not very attractive, I think.
Exactly.
It does shoot you right upside the head, because everybody will then paint that target on you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You're the person that constantly complains about not getting recognition.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what else you do, that's what you'll be remembered about.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And plus, there are different types of recognition. Like I always do the air quote thing around award-winning playwright, because my one award for my writing was because I didn't kill the director. It went cold blood, but it's still an award. But I have accolades. I have good reviews in many places. I enjoy a certain amount of respect among my peers. I have made sales across the world. So I think maybe, although you should always strive for more, I think by the same token, don't be unrealistic about the kind of accolades and the attaboys or attagirls that you get. Because if you look hard enough, you're going to find something that should help dispel the imposter syndrome in you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
So, Cindy Kep has another question here. Is imposter syndrome a legit, healthy part of the process, or is it deleterious?
I think it's healthy. Yeah.
I did. Yeah. for a reason. I think it is for a reason. I think I might have mentioned earlier. It just it forces you to just keep going. It just, if I write one more, and and if it's good, then then maybe I can dispel some of this feeling, and maybe you never do, but the byproduct is you've written another book. You keep writing more books.
Yeah, if you write one book and you think this is the best, and it cannot be topped by anything, even if something I write next year will not be as good as this book, well, then give it up. Go home.
Yeah. I think that helps keep you. That's what helps you grow, is thinking, you know what, this could be better. I could do better. So where do I learn how to do this better? Even if it's just something minor, I try to make sure that every book is better than the last one. And I think if I was so sure that I was just all that, I probably wouldn't give that much effort to it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me once, why do you write? I said, so I can learn how to be a better writer. I mean, I want this next book to be good, but it's also part of a process of, it's one book on a journey of learning how to be better at doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I would add that I think it's deleterious if you use the imposter syndrome to prevent you from getting your work out, or from preventing you from talking about it, because the work no longer sells itself. I say this a lot on my broadcast, that there is, back in the 90s, we all talked about signal versus noise. And with the interwebs, the screaming dumpster fire they are now, it's hard to get your signal out there. And so you have to keep at it. You have to refine your message, and you just simply have to keep throwing the message out there along with your work. And if you think, well, nobody's going to want to read this, nobody is going to want to hear my music, nobody wants to see me on stage, and it stops you from putting your work out there, then it's a bad thing. Yeah. But if it makes you sit down and say, okay, I don't want anybody to pull back the curtain and see I'm a fake. I don't want them to see that I'm wearing the emperor's suit right now. So I'm going to make this work the best I can possibly make it. I think that's when I think that's when you can make it work for you. I'm never going to say it's a good thing, but so, and we have another joke by Cindy Cap. What's another name for Santa's little helpers? Subordinate clauses. Oh my God, I love this gal. Anyway, let's see. And Grant just had his vitals taken. I hope they give him back. So let's see. Here we go. And we got Joe McKeel. Don't forget Stupid O'Clock on Thursdays and Saturdays. And here we go. Michaela Jade, author Michaela Jade, has a statement here. I think that's the difference to me. An imposter is a con, or someone trying to con people. And I know I'm not trying to con anyone. I am what I am.
There you go.
I think that's it in a nutshell right there. And Meredith Loughran, our giantess, says, Cindy Cap, to your question, is there a reverse of imposter syndrome, assuming recognition is deserved? I don't think that exists, but a lack of recognition might be a failure at networking and marketing.
Which is kind of what we talked about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Darren Morgan of Moonlight Film says, no imposter here. I'm the one and only, except no substitutes. Mother. His nickname is Mother because he is a mother hen in watching over the crew when they go out on film sites. And check out Moonlight Film's YouTube channel, because they have all kinds of cool films that some of them I'm in. Anyway, here we go. Another one from Cindy Cap. Is there an overlap between imposter syndrome and low self-esteem, or are those different things?
Psychologically, they are different things, because you can have low self-esteem and that could keep you from reaching the success you would need to even feel imposter syndrome in the first place. So I think that those could be two different things. Now, you could have a little bit of both,
right?
But they are separate entities.
I think someone with low self-esteem is someone who might not ever even publish a book or try to get published. Right. Whereas someone someone with him who suffers from imposter syndrome could be published maybe anywhere from 1 to 15 times and still struggles.
Oh yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, and I see kind of like to me, low self-esteem might be the spark, and imposter syndrome may be the resulting flame. Like you said, that one inspires the next.
And it's so hard to tell because sometimes symptoms might show in an opposite direction. Many times people with low self-esteem will be the first one to tell you how great they are. I am fantastic. I do this, I do that. It's fantastically great. I'm doing 5 different projects at once. And they really have the lowest self-esteem of anybody in the room, but they overcome it by that boastful behavior. They're not really over ego inflated. They really need that validation.
Yeah.
So
I get all the validation I need when Amazon sells me my check. So,
there you go.
Anyway, John, I'm sorry. Did I speak over you? I'm sorry. John, were you saying something?
No. Huh?
Okay. I interrupted. I'm sorry. Anyway, Cindy Kemp has another great question here. Is there a common outward manifestation of imposter syndrome? That's a good question.
I don't think, it doesn't show on your face usually. So nobody can tell you're feeling these feelings inside. And that's part of the reason why everybody assumes it's just them. They don't realize like 70% to 75% of people feel imposter syndrome at one time in their life. But even the lady who was doing the first studies on this in psychological laboratories thought it was just her. And she talked to somebody else, and that lady says, yeah, it's me too. I've got that. Women to study thinking it was just women. Then they found out men had it too. And boom, it's something that nobody talks about and nobody can see. So, you can't just go, I bet that guy has imposter syndrome until they open their mouth and say something.
Yeah. I think
the self-deprecating. I'm sorry, Amy.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the self-deprecating commentary that's many of us resort to. I think that's a manifestation. I think at least it's something I occasionally do. It's just like, well, again, it's the preemptive strike. Let me say something. Let me say something critical before somebody else does.
Yeah. I think the closest thing probably for me that has ever outward manifested my imposter syndrome is probably when I'm at an event. I'm extroverted and introverted. It depends on the situation. But my introvert I have to push myself when I'm at an event because people will walk by and they'll glance at my book and I have to make myself interact because in my brain, I'm getting they're not interested. Let them walk by. Don't bother them. They don't, that they're not going to want to read what you have. And I think that's probably the closest thing to an outward manifestation for me is to just fight my inner voice of telling me to just shut up and sit there. If they're interested, they'll talk to you. Mm-hmm. And I found that sales tact really doesn't work. So you got to engage a little bit. So,
right.
Yeah.
I think my worst time with outward, sign of imposter syndrome. And Amy was there when it happened in Harrisburg, Illinois, at BurgCon down there. And we'd gotten a number of questions. It was Amy and Kathy Jackson, who will be on next week's show, by the way. And I were hosting a panel on writing and publishing and creativity. And we were getting a lot of great questions from the audience. And one person said towards the end, well, we're sorry if we're pestering you with our questions, but we don't get many celebrities down here. And immediately Amy is looking at me and Kathy and pointing at us like, it's you two, right? And I'm looking at those two girls. I'm like, oh, no, it's you two. And Kathy is, pointing at Amy and me. So, I think that was
like the Three Stooges. Who?
Is one of you secretly a celebrity that I don't know about?
The three of us had no clue. But I came to realize after that that there are levels of celebrity. Mm-hmm. To somebody who is in a rural area And suddenly they have people who are selling books, like all across the continent, all across the world, or even just getting them out there. And these guys are celebrities. So I got it then. I got it. But that was probably the worst outward manifestation of my own insecurities. So
that's when you. I'm
No,
sorry.
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's when you start signing books and say, "Who do I make this out to?" Bring your money up here.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah. No, Bruce Campbell had the best response to signing a book that I'd ever heard. My sister-in-law saw him at a book signing in Buffalo, New York, and he said that the first book he was going to sign, he'd make it out to eBay with love.
There you go.
I'm waiting for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that I had a couple of times where people that maybe I grew up with or whatever that I've reconnected with since doing all this on Facebook or something would say, wow, it must be, boy, I'm glad I'm not famous. That must be really tough. And I'm like, who are you talking to?
Say, so far it's easy.
I would like some more hardship. Bring it on.
Oh my gosh. And Cindy Kemp, of course, wants to know, what is a Cal's favorite holiday? New Year's Day. All right. Speaking of that convention, this is where we met this superstar, Rick Bradley. How have you helped a friend that is having an imposter moment?
I don't know about an imposter moment, but and I think we talked about this a few minutes ago. I whenever I can, I try to boost other people's stuff. I mean, there are some people I know who are like, they're brilliant at it. I am not, but whenever possible, if I see an opportunity to say, hey, check out so-and-so, they're doing some really interesting stuff. I don't know if they're having a moment so much, but certainly if you're providing some outside validation to somebody as opposed to them trumpeting their own horn all the time, I gotta believe that helps. I mean, it's just for me. It's just, I feel like it's just a way of just putting, it's karma. It's just putting good energy into the world, and because not because you want some kind of return, but because you want to do it. But if there is a return, then fine, it's all the better. But yeah, I think whenever possible, I try to say, hey, so and so just published a new book this month. Check it out. It's really good. Or I haven't read it yet, but her last one was great. So be sure and check it out. Hopefully that gives somebody a boost when they need it.
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
Ditto.
Being a directive counselor, as I was, I mean, I was very, here's what you got to do, kiddo. My secret weapon is to call them out on it when I see it. Because people will maybe sometimes not even realize that's what's happening. Mm-hmm. Am I having an imposter moment or am I not? Or they will say something and I'll say, that's your imposter syndrome talking, buddy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because sometimes you're like, oh, yeah, you're right. I didn't even realize I was doing that. And Brian and I go back and forth a lot on that because I'll say, that's your imposter syndrome, bud. You cut that back. Because realizing you're doing it, because sometimes you do things and you don't even realize you're doing it. You're doing it in fun and humor. That's cool. But, I get that because self-deprecating humor can be very funny sometimes. But, I will see somebody doing that and I'll call them on it because I think, do they realize they're even doing it? Has it become such a habit?
Yeah.
And to break a habit, you have to know you're doing it.
Yeah.
So I will, many times, if a friend is doing that, I will say, hey, wait a minute. You're doing it.
Yeah, and that's something I don't mind getting called out on, honestly. Cindy Kemp says, I'm not self-published and still run afoul of imposter syndrome. And I'd love to hear, Cindy, how you get past it, because you've got an incredible library of books. On Amazon and at Bear Publications, go to ckoepp.com and sign for a newsletter. And Eric Hawkins, of course, having mentioned the Amy Hale incident, evening all, the Eric Hawkins is here for the urination jokes.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
We had almost forgotten it, and now.
Yeah. Way to go, Thanks for nothing. Oh, wait a and now you've pissed off Amy. I mean, wait a minute here.
With friends like Eric, right?
Exactly.
And that's when the show went down.
That's right. And that's when Grisham died. And Ted Davies Artistry says imposter syndrome is an anxiety-filled habitual thought pattern. Empathically triggered and emotionally misdirected imposter syndrome can stop when you realize you are worthy. It's true.
I did some reading on this, and I saw that some people that commonly have imposter syndrome are people that maybe grew up with parents or with around people that constantly criticized everything they did.
Mm-hmm.
Or there was a lot of back and forth. You're doing great, but you're not doing good enough.
Yeah.
You know, and that gets ingrained into your psyche.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely a mental thing that you have to battle. But I thought it was interesting doing all the reading, the different types of imposter syndrome there was, and the different backgrounds that can help make it worse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And Karl, we do want to get to the presentation. I think we'll go for about another 5 or 10 minutes or so, and then we'll.
Well, and I've been dropping some of them in anyway. Haha.
Okay. Well, I'm such a lousy host. I didn't know. Wait, I'm doing
No, see, this is the counselor in me. You know, it's a process. See, we're going along, but we can repeat them all at the end. So.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea. Now, Juanita Houston, and we're glad you're here watching us on YouTube, says, will this be available later? Yes, it will be available on YouTube on the Brian K. Morris Rising Tide Publications channel on YouTube, where you're probably watching it now. Also on geekinsider.com later on, and also the Rising Tide Publications page on Facebook. So yes, it will be available. And Grant was complaining about the jokes, little realizing this only spurs Cindy on. What does Santa suffer from whenever he gets stuck in a chimney? Santa claustrophobia. Anyway, we love you, Cindy. And Juanita is missing something because of cooking dinner. Juanita, we will be here, I promise. And in fact, we are here every Tuesday night at 8 p.m.
What's for dinner?
Yeah, really. Yeah, what is for dinner? Yeah, I could use some. But anyway, bon appetit, and hope you catch us on the rerun. And let's see. Carlene clears her throat and says, not all of us are insufferable, but at least I hope I'm not. And I'll let Karl handle that one. Sarah says, Juanita, this will be on the YouTube page forever. You can also share it or save it to watch it later if you want, and also share it and like this page and subscribe. And you're welcome, Juanita. Thank you for being here. Here we go. And what's an elf's favorite sport? North Pole vaulting. And let's see, here we go. And we have covered this, but is self-deprecation a part of imposter syndrome? I think it's an outward manifestation of it.
I think it can be, yeah.
Yeah.
And part of the inward, too.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
I mean, because you have to be just deprecating yourself inside to feel it.
Exactly. And here we go. You've got a fan, John. Sarah says, you word things perfectly. I also love it when he smiles. His smile is infectious.
She said that last time. I'm going to start believing it.
There we go. See, you're helping John get over his imposter syndrome.
See, there you go. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I appreciate that.
Lord love you. And Cindy Kemp has a good question. While trying to overcome imposter syndrome, how do you avoid swinging too far the other way into being overconfident? I don't think I'm going to have a problem.
I think anyone who suffers from imposter syndrome is at no risk of being or behaving overconfidently. I think it just one precludes the other. It's just impossible to hold both in any kind of. If you're going to be one, you're never going to be the other. Yeah. I think
you can imagine being there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it as being like a number of mental disorders. Or even like something like an addiction, in that you don't really get over it. You just may find a way to cope with it, however, and to keep it at bay. But I agree. it'll keep you humble.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing either, but that's, a little humility these days, it's not a terrible thing.
No, it's not. And what does Mrs. Claus say to Santa when there are clouds in the sky? It looks like rain, dear. And they may not get any better, John. Sorry. Anyway, let's see. Let's see. Oh, and Michaela said maybe she wasn't nervous because she has related her nervous feelings as excited feelings. And Simon Sinek had a great video on it. We'll have to check that out later.
Oh, is she talking about Amy's friend?
I think so. Okay. It could be that maybe she, doesn't get nervous, but maybe and I understand it because sometimes like again on stage work, you've prepped for it, you have memorized your lines, you're confident, and it isn't really fear or nervousness that you're feeling, but excitement.
Yeah.
That could be it. But Meredith Walgren says, Cindy, I have self-depreciating humor. It's part of who I am. Blame the Irish side. Life keeps me humble. If you see me overconfident, tell me I have a hanging booger or something, okay? Well, you can be confident anytime. I probably have my fly open. But anyway, and let's see here. Oh, here we go. Okay, I'm about to get chastised here by the Dark Mistress here. Sarah. Brian, you make fun of yourself too much on your shows. Be nice to yourself. We talked about that when you were at my house. And I love you too, Sarah. Thank you. And it's something, I get that I get that from Cookie a lot. As you can probably well imagine. And we had another. This is only the second comment dump. This is not bad. So anyway, and Cindy Kemp has a great idea. We can watch out for each other. So, and Rick Bradley says, I know in a lot of things, I feel like an imposter. Every time my supervisor sends me an email at work, I keep expecting it to tell me to pack up my desk and turn in my work badge.
That's a good point I wanted to talk about too, is that sometimes, if you're in a work situation, they will almost encourage imposter syndrome and this feeling of less worth.
Yeah.
Because it encourages you to work harder and work longer and work more hours. And that's exactly what an employer would like to see. So, they are not about building up your ego at any, that's why you don't see a lot of awards at things. I worked for the state of Illinois, and I said, they don't have to pay me any more money. I've got, enough to live on and such, but it would be nice to get some recognition every once in a while. Well, you're not going to get that, because if we give you recognition, you'll get a big head, and then you'll, whatever. And it's much better to keep you down and working harder, and this feeling that you're not producing enough. So yeah, work will do that to you.
And that's sad. That's really sad, because positive reinforcement can do so much more. Like my daughter, for instance, she's kind of job hopped a lot, and she just recently started working at the store side of Cracker Barrel. She did not expect to like it because she's worked retail in so many other places. But her boss is a boss that leads, and she has encouraged her from day one. You're doing a great job. You're learning well. She just got a raise, and she's only been there a month. Because they just really encourage her. And this is the first time I've seen her go to work, excited to go to work, come home happy, even if she had a bad day, and just really just be like, I love my job. And it's all because of the environment.
Yeah.
It has to work in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good point. And Karl has an excellent point too. I remember I was kind of middle management when I worked at the water company. And they actually made me take a course on how to do those the annual assessment, supervisor assessments.
Yeah.
Except I was taught on how to fill it out as an employee, and they said, I did some things that I thought exceeded expectations.
Right. Oh. No.
And they don't want you to say that.
No, exactly.
Yeah, because they want you to, because then how are you going to follow it up next year? Because they were saying that, well, that looks like, you did something incredible this year, but next year you're slacking. And the only place I could ever get exceeds expectations was in attendance. because the company expected you to have, at least 3 days off because you're sick, or maybe a week if you catch a couple of colds. And I had a couple of years where I had near perfect attendance, and I said, I want that. I want that. I had to fight to get that exceeds expectations.
And they gave you that just for showing up. Now, isn't that sad? And so many times we take that attitude, and now we're working for ourselves, okay, in writing.
Right.
We apply those same stupid standards that we had at work to our writing or our art or our creative endeavors. And you cannot do that because, if you are always saying, oh, I met the expectation, no, you can't be doing that to yourself.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Again, you've got to be able to recognize your value, that you have improved as a creator or a marketer or whatever it is for your business, and celebrate that and keep the imposter syndrome at bay, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grant Lankard says, I think self-deprecating humor can be a sign that you're worried that people are going to notice that you're getting too big for your britches. That's a possibility. That's a possibility.
I think so.
And what's so bad about that?
That's true. Some of us may need a reminder that we are wearing the king's tuxedo, the emperor's tuxedo. So, and hello, Willow Schuyler, glad to see you here. And Pops Van Zandt, hello. And let's see, let's run down the list and see what other kind of great questions we've got here. What do snowmen take when the sun gets too low? A chill pill. All right, there we go. Rick Bradley says he keeps reminding himself that he must be writing well. If it wasn't good, I doubt Charles, Jen, or Brian would let me have a story in their books if it didn't.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have to admit, and I'm not saying this just to embarrass John, but it was a huge boost for my ego getting into Quest for the Space Gods. And that's one of the reasons I like working for other publishers, aside from the fact that I learn stuff every time I work with somebody, a fresh editor. But just the fact that I hold you and Jim Beard in such high regard that you guys liked my story enough to include me in there.
It's a good story. We look for good stories, and if you got a good story, it's a good story's a good story. It's
appreciate it.
It's not about stroking your ego.
That's true. And seriously, stroking ego is not exactly, I think, well, in moderate amounts maybe helps with imposter syndrome, but not to the point where you maybe have created a monster. So
there's a part of that though that even comes in, because you're saying, okay, I'm going to stroke my ego for a bit, and then you think, is that real? Am I telling myself real things about myself to stroke my ego, or am I making that up? And then you get imposter syndrome about stroking your ego.
No, it's a rabbit hole. It's a complete rabbit hole.
It is.
Yeah.
Man. Well, Jenna Marisi, and that's a name you can invoke here all the time, says to keep a nice things file too, and she references it when she's feeling down.
There you go.
Now, if Jenna Marisi is feeling down,
holy cats! Yeah, I mean,
there's no hope.
Yeah, seriously, yeah, because I have to admit, that she is, she's one of those people. Again, that's what she does is a huge inspiration to people like me. Because she started out at this, pretty much the same level as any of us do, but she's doing everything right. She's doing it by the numbers, and it's working. So,
but she still fights it like all the rest of us.
Right.
Oh yeah, seriously. Here we go. Oh, I love this question because I get this frequently. What is your favorite from Cindy Kemp? What is your favorite technique for dealing with the naysayers?
Define naysayers. What are we talking about?
Yeah. I like people who yeah.
I have a mechanical one too.
I have one that blows up.
If you're talking about people who are putting down your work,
right.
But they don't have a specific criticism of it, like, on page 20 in the second paragraph, okay, I did not understand where you were going with that. Okay, that's legitimate. But if they say your book stinks,
Yeah.
well, show me yours.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
we don't have one. I forgot. Sorry.
When are you going to get a real job?
Yeah.
Yeah, or you'll never make it in this field. Or are you making as much as Stephen King? Well, you're not. You must be a loser.
You still doing a little writing thing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I like that one, Amy, because that.
Yeah, you still doing that hobby thing of yours?
Oh yeah,
right?
I heard that one once from a friend, and who I don't see very often. But yeah, I just kind of I've pulled that one out a few times. When people say, "What's the most annoying question you get?" I often pull out the one about, "This is just a hobby, right?" That's
I once got a private message from someone in my hometown, as our my English teacher, bless her heart, found out what I was doing, started reading my books, got a hold of my hometown paper, and had them interview me. So that came out. I started getting messages from people in my hometown that I did not know. They started asking the rudest questions, like, "How many books have you sold?
Wow.
How much money do you make?" And I'm like, "Who are you?"
Who are you? And where'd you get the idea I was going to tell you how much money I'm making?
Yeah. What makes you think you're going to get any of this information? And it was stuff like that,
Yeah.
And Amy, part of that is the way you're taking those questions.
I mean, it very well could be. Yeah.
If somebody asked me, how many books do you have? I'd say 5, 6.
No, not how many do I have. How many have I sold?
Oh, I see.
They want to know how many books I've sold.
Maybe they want to write and they don't know how to go about it, and they don't know how to ask the right questions. And maybe they, but you're taking it as, they're being nosy or they're putting you down. And I would take that as, oh, they're looking to me as a knowledgeable source, and I'll just tell them something. It may not be the truth. I'm not gonna say I sold 5 books last year. I sold enough to take care of myself and my family.
Yeah.
As far as you know. Thank you.
As far as you know,
yeah. I just tell them it's between the only people I tell are Cookie and the Internal Revenue Service. So unless you're really on really good terms with my wife or you get a job there, that's the only way you're going to find out. So.
Another good answer to those questions is, I really can't tell you that information.
That's right.
Yeah.
It makes it sound mysterious, like, oh my God, how many has she sold?
Yeah.
Something I have started, since most of my stuff is self-published, I can truthfully say I make more per unit than Stephen King does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, yeah. Even though they can't spell my name for crap. But anyway, let's see. And Cindy Cap asks, where does the snowman keep his money? In a snowbank. And here we go. Bill Sarden, glad to see you here. Do you agree that some people feel that if they don't constantly have a project, Kickstarter, etc. going on, they feel like a failure just because someone else tells them they need to? I believe that everyone has different progressive styles and different goals, and they shouldn't try to keep up with the Joneses. How do you guys feel about that? And I think that goes back to the comparison thing.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has different definitions of success.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever your definition is, that's what you need to go with. Don't let someone else define what success is for you. Some people, success is selling, hitting a bestseller list. Other people, it's just the fact that they've sold even one book, that someone was interested enough to buy one book. So it's really up to what your definition is, and you can't let other people define that, or you'll never be happy.
That's true.
Exactly. It's kind of like a YouTuber who always wants one more subscriber because that'll get them to 500, and then they want 1,000, and then they want. Where does that end?
Karl, I'm in the room.
I know.
I can hear you.
Right next door, Karl.
but in a way, that kind of hits people as well, because how do you define that success?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be different for different people.
John?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
When when I'm working on, as I mentioned at the outset of this conversation, in addition to writing my own stuff, I'm one half of a small press venture. So, the upside of that is, even when I'm not writing my own stuff, Brian, are you in that book? Even when I'm not writing my own stuff, if I'm working on like an anthology that Jim and I are putting together, I can still feel like I'm being productive, even if I'm not working on my own specific piece of work. I'm working on putting together another book that's going to be on the market in the next 6 months. So I don't have to think about, oh my God, I'm not writing right now. Maybe I'm not, but I'm editing a bunch of other people's stuff to turn it into a book. So I still have the luxury of feeling like, hey, I'm doing something creative, even if I'm not hammering out chapter after chapter after chapter in my own book.
And just because I'm not at my computer does not mean I'm not working.
Yes,
there is always
correct.
something happening up here.
Correct.
So,
Absolutely.
Standing in, the line at Walmart to check out, I've got a story. Oh, what if I did this? What if I did that? Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to forget it later. I don't get it written down pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
But as a writer, and I think it's true for most writers, you've always got something going. Even if you're not actively working on it, it's there and you're working on it in your head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like I tell people, I traded a 40-hour-a-week job for one that takes up every waking moment of my day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only the waking ones. One time I was having a weird dream, and in that dream I was speaking only in iambic pentameter. And when I woke up, I was like, okay, stop it, Karl, right now. Do not get near Facebook, because
which is good advice anyway.
Well, yeah.
and I, of course, I did. And then I wrote something in iambic pentameter on my page, and people are like, what the hell's wrong with you?
I was writing something.
I just woke up. So even in my sleep, I was creating something.
Yeah. Well, my best-selling series came from a dream. So, you're always working.
That's true. That's true. And I had a dream when I was in second grade, and that I finally put into an article and had it published about 2 years ago. So you never know when it's going to pay off.
Yeah.
Douglas Deck, who is an author himself, says, after 10 novels, I would think I'd be making a survivable income. That is what makes me feel like less than an author. There are people, though, and my heart breaks when I read that.
Yeah.
Because, as I tell people, I have some years I can't even afford to buy government cheese. But, it's like, I think it depends on what you define your success.
Yeah,
I would think, but just the fact you've got 10 novels out there, bro.
Yeah, man. Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Somebody's going to be jealous of you for something you've done.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're going to be jealous of somebody else for something they've done.
Mm-hmm.
I used to write magazine articles, and I would get paid $300-400 a piece for those magazine articles. I write a book and try to sell a bunch of copies, and I don't make near that amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
But I have more of my soul left than when I was writing those stupid. One time, Video Maker magazine, I sent them in one article. They liked it, and it was something I really loved. The next time, I think one of their other audit authors, just kind of bugged out on them, and they said, "Can you write something about edit controllers?" And I'm like, they said $400 in it. I said, okay, I'm writing something about edit controllers. I have no idea what the hell an edit controller is, but I found out fast, wrote the article, and thought, there's a little bit of my soul I just sold for gold.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided at that point, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm writing what I want to write.
I did the same thing. And I just I hated every minute of writing that.
Yeah.
Because it didn't interest me at all. I did not care. I wrote it because it brought me in a paycheck, but I hated it.
Yeah, I've had those jobs. And the thought that comes to my mind is can you put I don't know what Douglas's backstory is, but and I think I mentioned this, Brian, last time I was on your show. I mean, when somebody walks up to my table at a convention, somebody I don't know, I have no idea who this person is, and I have a new book on my table that just came out like a month earlier, and he walks up and he says, "Is this the new one?" And I say, "Yeah." And he says, "I've been waiting for this." Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you can put a price tag on that. No. Or when somebody finishes. I remember specifically somebody finished reading my first book, and and he said, I read your prose, and I get little bits of little whiffs of Raymond Chandler. Well, okay.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, granted, that doesn't put food on the table. I get it, but it gives you something else that's really hard to quantify, really hard to put a price tag on, I think.
Yeah. Let me grab something I want to show you.
Okay.
So I went to an event, and my books are mostly new adult, but I do have a couple of YA stories. I had a younger person come up to my table and give me this. And they said they made it for me because I wrote such fun stories.
Whoa.
This is priceless for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something that person specifically made because they enjoyed something I had done. You can't put a price on that at all. But I keep that where I can see it all the time because it reminds me. Yep, there you go, Brian. Yep. Brian has his own doll.
That's right.
Yeah,
Figure.
I've always said if you're writing to make money, you're probably doing the wrong thing. I mean, learn computer systems and fix things and those kind of things. You'll make all kinds of money. You may not enjoy that life so much.
Yeah.
You write because you want to.
Yeah.
And the same thing about art or performing, you do those things because you want to do them. And, writing, not so much for money.
Yeah. Now, there's nothing wrong with making a living writing at all.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that being a goal, but you just have to keep in mind, I mean, there's so many books on the market. It's hard to be seen. What is it? The average book sells less than 500 copies.
Yeah, I think it's including mainstream and writers. I think it's down around 100.
Yeah, there's so much out there. So it might just not be that you're not a good author, Douglas. It may be that you need better marketing tools. You need maybe a better way to get your work in front of people so that you can start seeing that income. There's so many moving pieces that it's really difficult sometimes to nail down what it is. Because I've asked myself that question when something wasn't selling. I was like, is it just bad or am I just not marketing it correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's hard to, I mean, I'm not going to say everything I write is perfect because I know it's not. But, that's one of those struggles we have as writers is that it's a fickle market.
One of the most depressing things I ever read was an article about, I think it was a train station in New York. And they have a bookstore in the corner. And in that bookstore, right by the door, they have this particular display with the stuff they think is going to sell. And they change that out after an hour. If your books have not sold out, if they've sold out, they'll put more of your books there. But if they have not sold out, your books get moved to another shelf and someone else's books get in that. And I thought, an hour? You've got 1 hour to sell out of all your books in that stand or they're off. And they would move books progressively towards the back door throughout the day. And I thought, that is so depressing to me.
Yeah.
But it is the reality of some of those particular markets,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even marketing itself can be difficult in that I've read studies that like really busy platforms such as Instagram or especially Twitter, that the lifespan, if you will, of any sort of promotion on those platforms is 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's how long it'll be, that your message will be prominent before a whole bunch of other crap pushes it down. And that was before they changed the algorithms where you may see the people who replied the most, but you may have somebody who only makes a tweet like every other week or something, and they get drowned in it. Well, so-and-so liked this one, so-and-so shared this tweet, so, it is a crapshoot there too. So you just have to figure out what you can make work for you, I think.
But at least, Douglas has 10 novels as back catalog. So that,
amazing.
If 11 catches fire, people will look back and say, I need the one before this.
Yeah.
I need the one before that. I need the one before. So, you're doing the work that you need to do. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we covered it this morning on my discussion with Ted Davies on his YouTube show, and I told him the best thing that sold my first book, Bloodshot: The Coldest Warrior, was my second book, Sandestein, and what sold Sandestein was my third book, Conflict. I say it with tongue in cheek, but nothing succeeds like excess. And the more you put out there, the less you look like a hobbyist. So,
Right.
matter of time.
It goes back to what I was saying earlier about the volume of work. Just keep putting stuff out there. It just there's a certain critical mass that you reach, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because you don't want to approach the person at that particular convention that's sitting there and they've got like one book in front of them. I mean, they may have 10 copies of that same book, but you're like, oh, okay, he's going to try and push that one book on me. If you go to like Brian K. Morris's booth, he's got a whole bunch there. And so you have a choice. So it feels less pressure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Teresa Dunn now says, wow, well, guess I don't have imposter syndrome, seeming I have an interview with a magazine for writing poems, getting paid for writing my poems. Keep reminding yourself of that every time you feel that it's syndrome popping up in you. Seriously. And I'll be there to remind you. Douglas Deck says, Amy is right. Make your own opportunity. Exactly. And Cindy Kep says, related to Amy's comment about having something ready, the Doc Saga story I submitted was a mutated version of the fanfic I wrote and stuck in a drawer because you can't do much with fanfic. Well, what was it? 50 Shades of Grey started out as fan fiction.
Twilight fan fiction of all things.
Yeah, she did.
Don't seem even remotely related.
Wow.
Yeah.
And let's see. Oh, here we go. What do you call a greedy elf? Elfish. And let's see. Here we go. And people are missing stuff in there, but not us. And here's a good one from Gospel Illusionist Jake Lindsay. What would you say to a person with imposter syndrome? I think we've covered it a little bit, but if you had just one thing to say to a person to remind them, what would you tell them?
I would, like I had said to you and you had said at the beginning of the show, I'd say, what success have you had that triggered this feeling of being an imposter? Because you obviously had success.
Yeah.
And I would remind them of that.
Yeah. I agree with Karl. I think that's probably the best thing you can say. As a matter of fact, on the last show, when I heard Karl say that, that helped me because I had never looked at it that way. So you had me, Karl, a lot. I heard you say that when I was listening to the last show, and I thought, wow, I never looked at it that way before. You can't be an imposter if you don't have a reason for people to look at you and go, do they know what they're doing? So you have to have something out there that would bring in that scrutiny.
Yeah. You have to have that triggering event. I'm sorry, that triggering event is the success.
Is the success, exactly, because then you go, why?
Wow. So you've had success.
If you feel like you're pretending to be something, you must have been something at some point. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And let's see. And we've kind of covered this earlier. Is imposter syndrome a strictly internal thing, or can it be encouraged from the outside? I'd say yes to both.
Yeah.
Because if you allow
people to say things that bring it on,
how you react to it.
Yeah. I mean, people have said things that, some reviews that I've read and I thought, is that right? Is that true? Because I've definitely had my share of horrible reviews, and it does sometimes it makes you think. Sometimes you have to just go, they're that doesn't matter. They don't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But sometimes it does get to you and it can trigger it.
That's true.
Yeah. I had a review that somebody said one of my books, it was a shame it wasn't in Dutch. And I'm like, oh, maybe. No, I'm not worried if it's not in Dutch.
Yeah.
But for a minute I was thinking, maybe I should get somebody to translate this. Why am I even going there?
Oh, yeah. You're like, why? my funniest 1-star review is because, and it's my best-selling series, is because I use the word crap.
Yeah, I love that.
And like, there are so many other things that this person could buy. There's premarital sex, there's off-color jokes, all these other things. But the word crap is what triggered her, apparently.
Wow.
And so she wrote me a 1-star review saying that I'm a good enough writer. I didn't need to use guttural language.
Wow.
And I'm
Crap.
yeah. And I'm like, oh, she hasn't read my recent stuff then, because there's a lot more worse than crap in there. But it was one of the things where for just a minute I went, did I really? No, this is the stupidest reason to be sad. So there's something obvious you just brush off and they make you laugh. And then there's others that make you kind of second guess yourself.
Yeah. Just because of that, my next novel will be titled Crap.
My personal assistant has asked me to please write another version of the book and take all of the slang out and write duty head and things like that. She wants me to do it so bad. She's like, this would be the most hilarious book ever.
Oh, okay.
You know what? I get time. I'm going to do it. I'm going to write another one, take out all the curse words, all the slang, and it's going to be gosh, golly gee. It's going to have all of that in it.
And you'll have 2 versions you can sell.
Yes, I will.
You'll have one you could say this is the G-rated and this is the adult version. You will sell out of the adult version.
I will, because everybody's going to expect it to be so.
Yeah.
I don't want that G version.
I had a friend that even commented under the review and said, I think you're misleading people here a little bit. I think we read different books. This review is going to make people think that this is a really dirty book.
You put that parental advisory sticker on it, like on the
on it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I actually I'm actually thinking about that for our next show, is putting out a banner across because there are sexual situations in the cheerleader, Mad Gatsby cheerleader. Yeah. And I'm thinking I'm going to put a banner up there and not let anybody under the age of 18 touch that book. And I'll bet that'll sell more copies.
Oh, yeah.
I'm writing this down. And Teresa Dunn says, okay, I get it. Don't compare yourself with others. You accomplish because you can, and keep on keeping on, and no looking back. There you go.
That's it.
All right. And let's see. Here we go. And Carleen says, as someone who attempted to get published a couple of years, it was just too much work that took time away from my writing. Yeah. And you could have, we're using that time to promote, to build our social platform. And at that time, with no money, self-publishing wasn't possible. And vanity publishers, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Rick Riley says, I feel that way too. There are times like when I'm on this show with other people, I'm in awe. I know the last show I was on, I thought, I'm on here with Charles Milhouse, Bobby Nash, Kelly Austin, and Brian K. Morris. Why am I here again?
Again, what I said was, as you rise, Rick, your peers are going to be rising too, and you cannot compare yourself.
Yeah.
But think about where you were before. You weren't a published author at all. You're rising, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Remember when you came to us and you started asking us questions at that event? And now look, all because you took that step and you didn't let your imposter syndrome tell you that you could not do it.
Yeah.
There we go. And of course, Lou Motion is here, a successful writer himself, and he pays Karl the ultimate compliment. Good point, guy on top right.
That's good. I'll take it.
My God, yeah. And let's see here. And Bill Sarton says, I think the creative, I'm sorry for blocking out Amy and John there, but I think that creatives need to know there's more than one road to success. I keep telling myself that for now, as an artist, I may not have a comic book in me to create, but I might have a comic strip. There's Kilroy in the lower right. Waiting to come out. The same goes for authors as well. You may not have that book in you right now, but you might have a short story or two. Very good.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. And let's see here. Let's see if we've got any more questions? Well, Cindy Kemp asked, what do you get when Santa plays detective? Santa Clues. There we go. She's got to make a book of these things. And talk about imposter syndrome. Trevor Hawkins has a good comment here. Quote from Cary Grant. Everyone wants to be Cary Grant. Even I want to be Cary Grant.
I want to be John Malkovich.
Yeah, there we go.
If you've never seen that movie, that's the weirdest movie I think I've ever seen. And even in the end, John Malkovich wants to be John Malkovich.
Hence the title.
Yeah. It's like, okay.
Oh, and Willow Schuyler, who has an excellent talk show, and thank you for all the promotion you've been giving our family of shows here. I definitely appreciate it, Willow. How do you all keep yourselves grounded and out of your own heads as the success of your careers start taking off?
Ask me when it starts taking off.
I was going to say one word: cookie.
Yeah.
And again, success is different for each person. So, for me, it's not money. I'm doing okay. If I never sell another book, fine. But if people read the books that I've got, that makes me feel like a success. So I have given books away to people or traded for their books, and just the fact that somebody read that book is my success. So that
I think the hope, at least for me, is that if it's going to happen at all, it's going to happen sort of incrementally and slowly, because it's easier to keep a handle on it, as opposed to like if tomorrow morning I woke up and realized I sold 1 million copies of something, I'd be terrified. But if you can manage it in a way that it's sort of incremental, and it's a process, and it's a gradual growth, it's easier to maintain some control over it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, having said that, if I do wake up tomorrow morning and see that I've sold 1 million books, I'm not going to complain.
No, not at all.
Good.
I think I know I've told this to several friends that have started writing. They said, how do you compete when there's however many millions of books on Amazon? And I said, I think the people that are going to really make it are the ones that are going to keep going no matter what. That when people realize that writing a book isn't as easy as they thought it was, that it's not, I write a bunch of words and I just start raking in millions of dollars, and those people drop out, and the real writers are still there, still putting forward, trying to not just make money, but trying to put art out there and entertainment for their readers. Those are the people that are ultimately going to be successful, because they're the ones that just kept going even when it was hard. And again, that's something I have to remind myself of, because like I said, there's been times I've been like, should I keep doing this? But if I want to make it, I have to keep doing it.
Yeah.
The only person I'm in competition with is me. I'm not in competition with Amy, Karl, or John. I'm in competition with Brian.
Yeah. Before this last year, before I put out the cheerleader book, and I haven't looked there, how many of those have sold for a while, because I'm just kind of keeping it surprise. But last year, just based on books I had in back catalog, I sold some. And I think my take on that was $60 or something, So, and I did not promote. I was not doing anything. It was just, they were laying there and people were buying them. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I like that. Until it came tax time. And it wasn't that the tax was taken out of it, because that's fine. Go pave those roads, kids, keep it going. It was the fact that now I had to pay TurboTax for a special form just to fill out my taxes on the book sales. And that was $90. So I had a loss of $30 thanks to books. So you guys, don't buy this book. Stop it, you people.
That is the worst marketing.
Don't make me pay more taxes.
Yeah, people.
Have mercy on Karl. Don't buy it.
No.
It's like when I was in a multi-level marketing thing, and I used to ask my friends, who I might get involved, and I'd ask them, "What would you rather have? $5,000 tax-free or $25,000 with 5,000 in taxes?" And each and every one of them said $5,000, and I'm like, "You're what? Did somebody drop you on your head? What? You don't know how to do math? What?"
Yeah.
So, help Karl and don't buy his damn book on Lulu.com, right? Wow. Karl will be back on our marketing episode.
Buy Michaela J's book.
Okay. There you go. Give her the problem.
Warriors Trust.
That's right. Bill will have his sequel coming out in January.
I want to see your pre-taxes.
I know. Davies Artistry says, if you want to get out of your head, help someone else achieve their goals, and it will help you. It always does. There's a good one. And
Ted's got good advice and good artwork too, because he did this book for Donna, which is Dragons and Wizards, her latest book, which I'm stealing her thunder now, so I'll shut up.
Yes, buy her book so that she has to buy TurboTax too, and Karl can borrow it and maybe finally make a profit. And Rick Bradley says, I will agree that a support system can help keep that imposter syndrome at bay. And yes, Amy, Rising Tide is an amazing support system. And thank you for that. And Sarah, and I think we're going to make this last question because we've been at this for over 2 hours, and I appreciate the patience of my panel tonight. So, and appreciate definitely the great questions and comments we've been getting. And Sarah wonders if low self-esteem is part of why some people beg for recognition by being too bold, if that makes sense. And I'd say, yeah. I think so. Mm-hmm. Willow Schuyler says, I struggle a lot with the fact that I can make money from my broadcast through my viewers. Morally, I don't ever want to use people to gain financial success. And I don't know. I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to monetize, but I agree with Karl. If you're doing it just for the money, you are just setting yourself up for disappointment, and
you need to be authentic in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And
because you can make a lot of money on other things, and if you want to make money writing, dino porn. That's where the big cash is, people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And if you can name a character Buttbeard, you're in like Flynn. I'm telling you. And John is now wondering, what have I gotten myself into? And I said it was the last comment, but I lied. How does Syndicate battle imposter syndrome? With difficulty. I get little feedback, but what I do get from readers is positive, but negative from pros until recently. So I focus on the positive and to the naysayers. Good for you.
Absolutely.
Yes. And let's see. And hello, Jamie Ramos. Glad to see you up and about, buddy. Glad to see your posts. And Molly Daniels, good to see you again. I try to have at least 1 or 2 books released every year. Yes, I have 21 books and contributed to 8 more, 29 total. But as far as marketing goes, I'm still learning. And she's got a good solution for naysayers. Kill them in the next story. There we go. And let's see here. Cindy Kev has some good insults here. Example of naysayers. If your marketing isn't working, your writing sucks. Which I don't know, just your marketing sucks. If you're not doing this full time, you're just a hack. Sit down, shut up. Hey, I'm proud to be a hack. I really am. And let's see. And crap, Amy.
And, Sarah.
There we go. And let's see. And Rick Bradley says, if I made $1 million, that just means I'd have more time to write even more stories. And you can hire people.
Day job.
Yeah. So we got a plan. And Ryan Permison, and happy holidays to you, my friend. And any book recommendations? Well, this would be a good place to maybe close out this episode, I'm thinking. because I know these three people have some great books that I know they could recommend, except for Mr. Marketing Karl. But anyway, is in all seriousness, we hope that we thank everybody for if you stuck with us for the whole 2 hours plus, and we hope you can walk away with something that maybe helps you with your imposter syndrome. And it's a subject we will revisit again, because like I said, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. But maybe together we'll all learn how to cope with it, maybe just a little bit better. So, and again, I want to thank my incredibly patient panel here for sticking out the 2 hours plus. Hopefully it didn't feel like 2 hours, probably more like 3. But anyway, but I'm grateful to you guys showing up tonight, as always. And
good to be here.
It was fun.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And I had fun listening to you guys, and I got a lot from it myself. So, and like I said, we will revisit, and we will have you guys on again, together or separately, one way or another. So let's.
I'm going to separate you. Okay.
That's right. You can't threaten us like that, Brian. So anyway, what we're going to do is I'm going to go in reverse order this time. We'll start with Karl, then to John, then Amy, and please tell everyone a book you would recommend, hopefully one of yours, and where people can keep up with you. Let's start with the one, the only Karl Witsman here.
Oh, well, thank you. And I promise I won't hold up any more books whatsoever. I will not do that anymore because I did enough. But I just want to say, everybody, remember that this is a journey. Okay, I'm very zen, and it's a journey. And you're taking this journey, and there are times when you'll feel like an imposter, and just remind yourself of your success.
Excellent, Karl. And I hope we covered just about everything that you plan to bring.
Pretty much, except for one piece of advice somebody gave me one time, and I hope I get it right. And it was, never apologize for being awesome.
I like that. I'm going to use that.
You should use that. Yeah.
I should. I really should. Thank you. Thank you very much, Karl Witsman. John C. Bruening, your turn.
Brian, thanks for having me on again, second time in a month. And also thanks to Amy and to Karl. This is the first time I've really had a chance to talk to either one of you at length, or talk with either one of you at length. So it's great to be part of this whole conversation. I guess by way of just talking about a book or two, please check out my Midnight Guardian series. The most recent was Annihilation Machine, which came out in 2019. I am currently working on book number 3, which should be out hopefully next fall, in time for the next holiday season. And I guess if I had any advice to give to people, just keep doing the work, and something will come from that. And I can't say what, you can't say what, but just do the work, and don't listen to the negative voices in your head. Just do the work and keep doing the work, and be consistent, and find ways to put it in front of people. And I think you'll get past a lot of that anxiety that you struggle with, that we all struggle with. So that would be my advice to folks who are just looking for some traction. Just do that. Just keep doing the work. Keep putting it out there. That's it.
All right. Beautiful, John. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right. Pleasure having you here as always. And Amy Hale, ready to close out the show. Thank you, Amy.
All right. Well, I'm so honored to be here. And I guess as far as books go, my Shadows trilogy, I would say start with Shadows of Jane if you like something with a little romance, and a lot of a kind of action with some paranormal. I've got some others. Or if you don't want anything with any romance, it's a lot of creepy factor, I've got this one coming out. I'll have a release date very soon, Neurosis, and that's my thriller that I'm working on. So that will be out here in the next couple of months. And as far as advice, if you want this, if you really want it, just go for it, and don't let anybody tell you can't do it, especially yourself. We're our own worst enemies. So, don't let anyone get in your way of your dreams, especially you.
Beautiful, beautiful, great advice. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, John and Karl and all of y'all. And let me hit the right button here so that I'm on the screen. Anyway, thank you guys. Please hang out so I can say goodnight to properly, I'm going to mute everyone here, and I'll take over the screen for a little while. Thank you to everyone who's been on the panel here: Karl Witsman, John C. Bruning, and Amy Hale, for their wisdom and their excellence. Appreciate your friendship especially. And thank you to everyone in the chat tonight who had some incredible questions. Great humor as always from Cindy Cap. And we hope, honestly, we hope that we have helped you stifle those inner voices that are keeping you from reaching your full potential. And you know, so much great advice was given tonight that we hope you'll take to heart. As for good books, well, I'm loath to promote myself, but I would say Sanderstein is just the perfect thing to give to someone as a stocking stuffer or an underwear stuffer or whatever article of clothing you happen to use. Anyway, it's a good all year round with some irreverent humor. Also, Skyman, if you want a feel-good book, this is the one if you like adventure. And, of course, I'm pretty proud of this book here, Quest for the Space Gods. Check out the Flinch Books catalog for sure. And anyway, thank you all for being here tonight. As always, we want to thank iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Spotify for housing our podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you to geekinsider.com for powering this show, and to Plasmafire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you. Thank you for your sponsorship of tonight's episode. And also don't forget risingtide.pub. That's our website where you can sign for our monthly newsletter. Next one goes out January 1st at 5 p.m. And we have motivation, education, inspiration, and probably marble racing every now and then in each issue. So please check it out. Please sign up today. And if you're watching on Facebook on the Rising Tide Publications page, please, if you've enjoyed this video, if you've gotten anything out of it, please give the video a like and share it on your pages with your friends. Also, please like the Rising Tide page because we have constant new stuff on there all day long, all night, 7 days a week. So please sign up. Join the 2,200 people who have signed up so far. And if you're watching us on YouTube on either the Geek Insider page or on the Brian K. Morris Rising Tide Publications page, please, again, give this video a thumbs up if you got anything from it, if you enjoyed it for even a little bit. Also, please consider whatever you're watching page you're watching on to subscribe to that page and ring that bell so you'll be notified of any future videos that we place on there. And just a couple notes here. Next week on the last episode of Clever Title Pending for the year, we are going to be looking back at 2020 at the massive dumpster fire it's been, but how some of us have actually gotten ahead this year and are poised for success in 2021. We're going to be joined by the one, the only Donna Carleen will be on the panel, as will inspirational romance author Kathy Jackson, the one, the only author Michaela Jade, and comic creator Luke Stone. They're all going to be here telling you how you can set yourself up for success in the upcoming year and how we have survived the My Sharona Miley Cyrus Peter pandemic. So anyway, please tune in next week. We'll also be here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on Nevermind the Furthermore, where you are the guest, and we'll have creative conversation and coffee, all right? So please join us tomorrow, too. But anyway, again, thank you to Amy Hale, John C. Bruning, and Karl Witsman for their participation tonight. And again, thank you, whether you're watching or you were part of the panel. We appreciate you so much. And like Karl said, if I have any advice to give you, stay smart, stay safe, wash your hands, and never apologize for being awesome. Know you're awesome, and that's how you keep the imposter syndrome at bay. Everybody, thank you for being here. We appreciate you greatly, and we'll see you next week on Clever Title Pending. Take care, everyone.
From author Brian K. Morris comes a classic hero in a high-flying, fast-paced, and action-packed steampunk adventure. The original Skyman battles the Master of Steam. with an introduction by comics icon and historian Roy Thomas. A Rising Tide, an Ace Comics publication. Available now in print or digital format on Amazon.com.
Thank you for tuning in to Clever Title Pending, a Rising Tide Publications and Brian K. Morris production. A member of Comic Book Advocating Network and sponsored by GeekInsider.com. Become part of our show with sponsorship and advertising opportunities. For details, contact advertising at geekinsider.com or visit podcast.geekinsider.com. The Geek Insider podcast is available on your favorite app, so please hit the follow button and share it out to your friends. Because if you don't, you might have to turn in your geek card.